At this time, we'd like to take any questions.
For you two leaders here, what is your solution here? First of all, I'm assuming you're asking for more money, but correct me if I'm wrong. And where's the money going to come from? If everybody is taking cuts in education, higher education, K-12 is such a large part of the budget, where are you going to get this money?
Well, in answer to kind of the first part of that, is as far as if we're expecting more money here, we understand that the state budget is in a situation that everybody is going to have to take cuts, and we're all going to have to kind of share the burden of balancing the state budget. What we want to make sure that we're doing is keeping those cuts as minimal as possible, and making sure that whatever they are for higher education, that they don't impact the classroom, or they impact the classroom as little as possible, that we don't lose our student services, and most importantly, that we don't see our tuition go up. Specifically, as I mentioned, at the community and technical colleges, we're looking at the second highest tuition and fees in the nation right now. And I just don't think that's a race that we want to win. So we need to be very careful, but we do understand realistically, as students, we know we need to be part of the solution. And I don't know what the answer is for how they can, balance this budget without cutting everybody a lot. And I think we just need to keep the options open and look at what's best for the state of Minnesota and what's going to help us long-term to avoid these economic slumps in the future.
Would your groups favor a tax increase to keep money flowing to the schools?
I mean, right now we don't specifically want to come out and say like that's something that we favor. I think, as I said, we need to keep all options on the table. We need to look at everything, every possible solution, examine it, and see what's in the best interest of the state of Minnesota and what's going to help us moving forward.
Can you tell us your arguments, and either of you can take this, on the interests that you're competing with too? Don was just saying, in the budget, it's kids that you're competing with, it's grandma in the nursing home, your young adults. What's your argument that you need the money more or as much as young children or grandma?
Well, I see higher education and MSCSA specifically as part of that education picture. So we talk about are we pitting ourselves against K-12 or against these other programs, and I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think what we need to look at is what is the benefit of higher education, and there's this big push right now nationwide and in the state to talk about P16 programs and looking at the education of the whole student from early childhood on to be post-secondary education. And I think we need to look at it as a broad thing like that instead of how are we pitting these programs against each other. I don't want to end up in a fight against K-12 or against public safety or against local government aid or nursing homes or anything like that. That's not where students want to end up. We want to be part of the solution. And part of that is going to be funding us so that we can be educated, so that we can go out into the workforce and over the course of our lives make that extra money and make that extra economic impact so that we can be a base support for the economy and be part of the tax base and build up Minnesota.
Yeah, just kind of continue to elaborate on what Jacob had to say there. As far as the state university students are concerned, we agree very much on that same thing. And we look back to 2003 when the system collectively saw budget cuts of roughly about 15% in their base funding. Tuition made up 90% of that cut. I think there's no question among the students this year that we know we're going to have to be a part of that solution. We're just looking to make sure that it's not all on our backs this time. So we're just advocating and understanding that we're all in a tough situation, and we're going to take on some of that burden, and we're working very closely with all our administrations and the system office on what is that best solution.
What's an acceptable tuition increase, or isn't there such a thing?
Well, when you put it that way. No, I think right now that's almost an impossible question to answer because we don't know what the final outcome, what the budget numbers are going to be. I think our priority, especially at the two-year level, as I've said, second highest in the nation, we need to do something about that. And our priority is always going to be the lowest tuition possible. However, we need to balance that against, we are paying a lot for this education. It needs to be high quality. We need to have the support on campus. We need to have the services that are going to help us be successful so that we can get these degrees and go out and get these jobs. So there's no way to put a number on it right now to say what's an acceptable increase, but we just want to make sure that it doesn't happen like it did in 2003, where whatever cuts are passed on to the system, 90% of that ended up coming out of student tuition, and we just can't allow a situation like that. We can't, stand here and say like we're going to be okay with that. We need to stand up and say no. We need to hold ground on tuition right now, and we need to do what we can to keep Minnesota a leader in education.
I mean, I would agree with Jacob said once again. I mean, looking at the university standpoint, we're in the same situation. We understand that there's going to be budget cuts. And what do we need to look at for a tuition increase, I think is very, very difficult to do right now. We just don't know where the numbers are going to be.
What do you two think about Governor Plenty's proposal to dramatically increase online education? Part of that, in theory, would save money. Is that a place where you should be going?
I think online education has a very important role to play in the future of higher education in Minnesota. I think we need to be very careful. It's kind of a new and developing field. We need to make sure that the academic standards are there. And one of the things with the cost side of it is, I think the argument could be made eventually that there will be cost benefits to online education, but right now we're in that mode of building up infrastructure. So there are higher costs both to the system and to the student. Students at the community and technical college level, we actually have a market-based tuition system for online education, and it ends up being basically, for example, at Mesabi Range where I attend, an online course is an extra $25 per credit, and that's their market-based tuition cost. So for a student it costs a little bit more right now, for the system it costs a little bit more as they build up the infrastructure, but eventually it could be a cost benefit. The thing we need to be careful about is dictating the market. Lake Superior College has already 20% of its credits available or sold online, and that's, you know, it's a niche that they've carved out in the market. But that may not work for every institution, and we may not need every institution doing that. What we need to do is let the market build itself and not necessarily say, we're going to put X number of credits online.
I would agree, once again. We've got a lot of
I'll let you go first next time.
Like Jacob was saying, the infrastructure, I mean, we're in a state of building. When it comes to the cost for students to attend an online class and the way they're delivering, I think there's a lot of challenges. And a lot of times it ends up costing some students a little bit more money because we're in that stage of building some of that infrastructure up.
What do you think about tuition caps? Do you think students would like to see the certainty built into the budget of tuition cannot rise above a certain percent?
I think certainty is always comforting, but I think our students have come to the terms with the fact that while a tuition cap would be good, we think that it may be limiting what these numbers come back like. I mean, we're on the verge of, I mean, like a lot of us know that our state has never seen anything to this magnitude. And students understand that, and they realize that. And once again, we understand we need to be a part of that solution. And understanding what would be an appropriate cap is once again kind of difficult to see where some of these numbers are going to be.
And I think the MSCU Board of Trustees has been very open, both in their board meetings and any legislative testimony that they've done, and the Chancellor also, about their desire to make all of these decisions as we go through this budgeting process with the needs of students in the forefront. And I, from what I've seen at the Board of Trustees and from what I've heard from MSCU as they testify, I think they've shown that they don't see tuition as the answer to this. So, but as far as a tuition cap, you know, we need to balance that against the cut. Wherever the cut is, we can't, you know, come out with a 15 or 20% cut to the system and then say we're going to hold tuition to 3%, because that'll hurt our students. We'll lose services on campus, we'll lose course offerings, we'll lose teachers, we'll lose staff, and we won't get the quality of education that we need. So we know we need to be a part of this. The hope is that the cut won't be so bad that we need to see a huge tuition increase.
Why do you think you've been a big or easy target for cuts? Because you had them big before, another double digit coming, and things like K-12 and public safety are held harmless, but higher ed is shouldering more of the burden.
Because we, unfortunately, are one of very few state agencies that have a very ready source of revenue besides the state. We have students who can pay tuition. So when you cut other state services, that's it, they've lost their funding. When you cut funding to higher education, they've lost their state funding, but there's still that 49% that comes from us. And as Senator Sharon said, that shift could happen, and it could happen this year. If the cut is big enough and the tuition increases enough, we could reach the point where the students in the state of Minnesota are paying more for their public higher education than the state is. And I don't think that's I agree with her. That's a public policy shift. I think that's something that, you know, we need to keep that from happening.
I don't want to go there.
Are there any further questions? Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for being here today, and we will be doing a small student rally in the Rotunda right after this, so if you'd like to stick around and get some good pictures of that.